Some memories glow like amber, preserving the past in a beautiful, frozen moment that never truly fades away. We revisit the turning points of life and the lessons that stay with us forever. Hit subscribe today and hold on to the memories that matter most. I was lacing up my boots to drive to my brother's house for Sunday dinner when my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. It was my accountant, not a text, a call. And Daniel never called unless something was wrong. I almost let it go to voicemail. I had a casserole dish wrapped in foil in my other hand, my keys already hooked between two fingers. But something made me set the dish down. Something in the way his name just sat there on the screen, glowing, patient, like it was waiting for me to catch up to what it already knew. I picked up. He said 4 words before I could even say hello. Do not go there. I stood in my kitchen for a moment, not moving, not breathing, the foil still warm under my fingertips. Daniel, what did you find? I need you to sit down, he said, and I need you to listen to everything before you say a word. So he sat. And what he told me over the next 22 minutes rearranged everything I thought I knew about my own family. My name is Claire. I am 31 years old. I grew up in a mid-sized town in Ohio, the younger of 2 children. My brother's name is Marcus. He is 38, married to a woman named Diane, and for most of my adult life, I believed he was one of the few people in the world I could genuinely trust. Our father passed away 14 months ago. He left behind a commercial property downtown, a building our grandfather had built in 1961, a building our father had spent 40 years maintaining, leasing, and refusing to sell, no matter how many developers knocked on the door. It was not just real estate. It was the physical proof that our family had made something real in this world. Dad called it the anchor. He said as long as we held it, we were grounded. He left it to both of us equally in his will. 50% to Marcus, 50% to me. I thought that was the end of it. I thought that meant we would manage it together, make decisions together, honor what he built together. We had a handshake agreement that neither of us would sell, refinance, or alter the property without the other's written consent. We even had Daniel, who had been our family's accountant for over a decade, overseeing the books on the building's rental income each quarter. I thought we were fine. I was not fine. I had simply not been paying attention to the right things. What Daniel found started with a number that did not add up. A small discrepancy in the property's maintenance account, an invoice paid to a contractor I had never heard of, for work I had never approved. He flagged it as a clerical error at first. Then he found another one, then a third. Then he pulled the full 18 months of records and realized the discrepancies were not errors. They were a pattern. Someone had been slowly draining the maintenance fund, not dramatically nothing, that would trigger an alarm on a surface-level review. Small amounts, irregular intervals, always attached to legitimate-looking paperwork. But Daniel had been doing this long enough to know what legitimate paperwork smells like. And this did not smell right. He dug deeper. And that is when he found the amendment. 4 months after my father's funeral, a document had been filed with the county, an amendment to the property's ownership structure. A single-page form, notarized, that designated Marcus as the sole managing partner with full authority to make binding financial decisions on behalf of both owners. My signature was on it. I did not sign that document. I have never seen that document. I was not even in the state 4 months after my father's funeral. I had taken a week to visit a college friend in Portland, specifically because I needed to get out of Ohio and breathe. I have the plane tickets. I have the hotel receipts. I have the texts I sent from Portland telling Marcus I would be back the following Sunday. But my signature was on that document, notarized, filed, legally recorded. While Daniel was talking, I kept trying to find the alternative explanation. I kept telling myself there had been a miscommunication, a form I had signed without reading closely, something Marcus had meant to explain and forgotten. I ran through every version of the story where my brother was not the villain. I have always done this. Even as a child, when Marcus would take the last of something, or forget a promise, or leave me to deal with a consequence that was half his fault, I would find a way to make it okay in my head. I would reframe it. I would absorb it. 14 months of grief had made me very good at absorbing things quietly. But Daniel had not finished. He said that 2 weeks ago, a commercial real estate firm had reached out to him. By mistake, they had pulled our father's old accountant from public property records and assumed Daniel was still handling all of Marcus's affairs. They were following up on a preliminary purchase agreement for the building. They wanted to confirm the timeline for the transfer of title. The preliminary agreement had been signed 6 weeks ago by Marcus, alone, as sole managing partner. The sale price was listed at $1.4 million. I sat in my kitchen with the phone pressed against my ear and the casserole going cold on the counter, and I felt something I can only describe as the floor dropping out from under me. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter than anger. The specific, nauseating feeling of realizing that someone you loved has been building something behind your back for a long time, carefully, patiently, while standing next to you at your father's graveside and squeezing your shoulder and telling you that everything was going to be okay. I asked Daniel what I needed to do. He said, "Don't go to that dinner tonight. Don't let him know you know. And call an attorney first thing tomorrow morning." Then he said something that I have thought about every day since. He said, "Claire, this did not happen overnight. Someone thought this through." I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed and I replayed everything. Not just the last few months, everything. The way Marcus had gently suggested, twice, that I might want to consider selling my half whenever you're ready. The way Diane had asked, over Christmas dinner 2 years ago, whether I had ever thought about liquidating the property and doing something more practical with the money. The way Marcus had been the one to handle all the paperwork after Dad died, because I was too overwhelmed to focus, and he had offered, and I had been grateful. I thought about the notary signature. To forge a notarization, you need either a corrupt notary or someone willing to impersonate the signatory. I am not a lawyer, but I know that forged notarization is a felony. I know that filing a fraudulent amendment to a property ownership record is a felony. I know that signing a preliminary purchase agreement using authority obtained through a fraudulent document is fraud. My brother had committed multiple felonies against me while bringing me soup when I had a cold. I called an attorney the next morning. Her name was Renata, and she was a real estate and estate law attorney in Columbus with 30 years of experience. I told her everything Daniel had told me, and I told her what I had already started gathering on my own, the plane tickets from Portland, the hotel receipts, a screenshot of the text thread with Marcus from that week, and photographs of every page of my father's original will. Renata listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you have access to your own email from 4 months ago?" I did. She told me to search for any email from a notary, a title company, or a legal service from that period. I searched right there on the phone with her. Nothing. She said, "Good. That helps. Now I want you to do one more thing. I want you to call your brother tonight and act completely normal. Tell him you're sorry you missed dinner. Tell him you weren't feeling well. And then I want you to stop discussing the property with him entirely until we've had a chance to pull the full record." She was building something. She just needed me to hold still while she built it. I called Marcus that evening. He answered on the second ring, warm and easy, the same voice I had heard my whole life. He said he had missed me at dinner, that Diane had made my favorite, that I should come by that weekend. He asked how I was holding up. I told him I was doing okay. I told him work had been busy. I told him I had been a little under the weather. He said, "You know you can always call me if you need anything, right?" I said, "I know. I love you." I ended the call and sat with the phone face down on my lap for a long time. Over the next 3 weeks, Renata and Daniel worked together to build a complete picture of what had happened. What they found was more deliberate than I had let myself believe. The notary whose stamp appeared on the amendment had not notarized any document for me. When Renata's paralegal contacted her office with the document number, the notary said she had no record of it in her log. She was cooperative. She was appalled. She said her stamp number had apparently been used without her knowledge, which is a crime in itself. The contractor invoices used to drain the maintenance fund were traced to a company registered in Diane's maiden name. The company had no website, no employees, no business history. It had been incorporated 8 months after my father's death and dissolved 6 months later. It existed for exactly as long as it needed to. The real estate firm handling the sale had received their commission instructions. Marcus had already specified that the proceeds would be wired to a single account, an account that was not shared with me. And then there was the letter. While pulling records at the county clerk's office, Renata's team found a second document filed 3 months ago, a letter, also bearing what appeared to be my signature, stating that I had received and acknowledged the managing partner amendment and had no objection to any sale conducted by the managing partner on behalf of the ownership group. A letter confirming that I had agreed to everything, that I had known, that I had signed off. 2 forged signatures, a ghost company, a fraudulent notarization, and a real estate deal 6 weeks from closing. My brother had not made a mistake in a moment of weakness. He had constructed an entire architecture of fraud, document by document, over more than a year. Renata filed for a temporary restraining order on the property sale. It was granted within 48 hours, which froze the transaction completely The real estate firm could not proceed. The title could not transfer. Nothing could move forward until the court addressed the ownership dispute. She also reported the forged notarization to the state attorney general's office. That report triggered its own investigation, separate from our civil case. That investigation, once it began pulling the same threads Renata had already pulled, moved quickly. I still had not confronted Marcus. Part of me wanted to. Part of me had written the confrontation in my head 100 times. I would show him the documents. I would ask him to explain. I would watch his face change from confident older brother to something else. Part of me wanted that moment. Renata said no. She said the moment I tipped him off, there was a risk he would attempt to destroy records, move money, or flee. She said, let the process do what the process is designed to do. You don't need the confrontation. You need the outcome. She was right. I knew she was right. I just had to learn how to want the right thing instead of the satisfying thing. The Sunday dinner I had missed became, over the following weeks, a recurring excuse for Marcus to check in on me. He called twice a week, easy and warm as always. He asked about my work, my apartment, whether I had thought about taking a vacation. Once, carefully, casually, he mentioned that there was an interested buyer for the building and asked whether I had given any more thought to the idea of selling. I told him I had been so busy I hadn't had a chance to think about it. He said no rush, just wanted to keep me in the loop. He was keeping me in the loop. He just did not know that I had already stepped outside it. 6 weeks after Daniel's phone call, I was sitting at my kitchen table when Renata called me. It's done, she said. The state investigation had moved. Marcus had been contacted for questioning, and during that interview, when presented with the forged documents and the notary statement and the paper trail on the ghost company, he had not held together the way I imagine he had planned to hold together. Renata told me that the interview had lasted 4 hours. I do not know exactly what he said. I know that Diane was picked up separately, at the bank, while attempting to move money from the account Marcus had designated for the sale proceeds. She had apparently not yet heard that the interview was happening. The irony of it that she was at the bank, that the timing landed the way it did, is the kind of thing that sounds too neat to be real. But it was real. Renata had the timeline confirmed from 2 sources. The charges filed against Marcus included forgery of a public record, filing a fraudulent legal document, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Diane was charged with conspiracy and fraudulent financial transfer. The real estate sale was permanently canceled. The ghost company's records were seized. The maintenance funds that had been drained were documented in full as part of the fraud case. The building is mine, both halves. Not because Marcus gave them up, because a court recognized that the amendment that had tried to take my half had never been valid. My father's building still stands on the same block it has stood on since 1961. The anchor, he called it. The proof that we made something real. He was right about the building. He was wrong about what kept it standing. It was not the family name above the door. It was not the brother who shook your hand and said he would look after things. It was the paper trail. It was the accountant who had been doing this for 30 years and knew what legitimate paperwork smells like. It was the attorney who told me to put down the casserole dish and let the process work. It was me, sitting in my kitchen at midnight with my phone and my receipts and my Portland hotel confirmation, building the case one document at a time. I have not spoken to Marcus since the charges were filed. I do not know what I would say. There is no version of the conversation that gives me back the brother I thought I had, because that brother, it turns out, never quite existed. What existed was someone who loved me enough, or needed me enough, to perform the role convincingly for 31 years, and who, when the numbers got big enough and the opportunity presented itself, decided the performance was no longer worth the effort. Grief does something to people. I know that. I lost my father too. But grief is not an explanation, and it is not an excuse, and it does not rewrite what he chose to do. The building has a new tenant starting next month. A small architecture firm, 2 partners, just getting started. They signed a 3-year lease. They told me they love the bones of the place. The original floors, the high ceilings, the way the light comes through the west-facing windows in the afternoon. I told them my grandfather built it. They said they could tell. I think about that sometimes, the way a building holds the intention of the person who built it, even a century later. The way something made with care resists being undone. My grandfather poured the foundation in 1961 with the specific idea that it would still be standing long after he was gone, that it would belong to people who understood what it meant to make something last. He did not build it so that a signature could be forged on a 1-page form and handed to a real estate firm in exchange for a wire transfer. The anchor held, not because of Marcus. Despite him, I still drive past the building sometimes on my way home from work. I always slow down a little. I do not stop. There's nothing I need to do there. The management is handled. The books are clean. Daniel reviews everything quarterly without me having to ask. But I slow down and I look at the facade and I think about my father standing on that sidewalk with his hands in his pockets the way he always did when he was proud of something, but did not want to say so out loud. I think he would have found the right words, eventually. I am still looking for mine.